Welcome to A Tale of Terror, a journey into the shadows where the line between reality and nightmare blurs. Tonight, you'll hear the chilling story of Hollowvale, a town where the past refuses to stay buried, and whispers in the dark lead to unspeakable horrors. Sit back, relax, and let the darkness unfold, if you dare. It began on a misty evening as Lila drove down a desolate road. The GPS had failed, leaving her at the mercy of the tangled forest. Just as she considered turning back, a sign loomed out of the fog, "Welcome to Hollowvale." Hollowvale seemed frozen in time, its cobblestone streets lined with ancient buildings. Lila pulled up to the only inn, the Hollow Hearth. The innkeeper, Mrs. Elspeth, was a frail woman with hollow eyes that seemed to see far beyond the physical world. "You're just passing through, right?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Lila nodded, but Mrs. Elspeth's words lingered. "Stay inside after dark," the old woman warned, "and whatever you hear, don't answer." The first night was uneventful, save for the faint sound of whispers outside her window. Lila dismissed them as her imagination. But as the clock struck midnight, a soft, deliberate knock came at her door. Lila's curiosity got the better of her. She opened the door to find a shadowy corridor, completely empty. A faint trail of muddy footprints led down the hallway. She hesitated but decided to follow them. The footprints ended abruptly outside room 7, a door slightly ajar. Peering inside, Lila saw an empty room, save for a rocking chair slowly creaking back and forth. On the chair sat an old, yellowed newspaper with a headline, "Local Woman Burned as Witch, Hollowvale's Shame." As she read the article, she heard faint laughter echoing down the hall. Returning to her room, Lila locked the door, her heart racing. The rest of the night was eerily silent, but sleep eluded her as the shadows in the room seemed to grow darker. The next morning, Lila asked Mrs. Elspeth about room 7. The innkeeper's face turned pale. "That room, it's been empty for years." Unable to let the strangeness go, Lila decided to explore the inn further. She discovered a locked door in the basement. Mrs. Elspeth caught her just as she was about to break in. "Don't go down there," she hissed. "Some doors are better left closed." That night, the whispers returned, louder this time. Shadows danced along the walls, and Lila swore she saw a figure standing at the end of her bed, staring. When she blinked, it was gone. Her fear turned to resolve. She had to uncover the secrets of Hollowvale. As she read the article, she heard faint laughter echoing down the hall. Returning to her room, Lila locked the door, her heart racing. The rest of the night was eerily silent, but sleep eluded her as the shadows in the room seemed to grow darker. The next morning, Lila asked Mrs. Elspeth about room 7. The innkeeper's face turned pale. "That room, it's been empty for years." Unable to let the strangeness go, Lila decided to explore the inn further. She discovered a locked door in the basement. Mrs. Elspeth caught her just as she was about to break in. "Don't go down there," she hissed. "Some doors are better left closed." That night, the whispers returned, louder this time. Shadows danced along the walls, and Lila swore she saw a figure standing at the end of her bed, staring. When she blinked, it was gone. Her fear turned to resolve. She had to uncover the secrets of Hollowvale. Determined to understand the strange events, Lila explored the town. She visited the library, where she met a reserved but kind librarian, Mr. Alden. He handed her an old book about the town's history. "You're not the first to ask," he said cryptically. The book detailed Hollowvale's dark past. Decades ago, the townspeople had accused a woman named Morgan of witchcraft after a series of mysterious deaths. Despite a lack of evidence, she was burned at the stake in the town square. Her dying words were a curse: "You will never find peace." Lila also learned about a secret ritual the townsfolk had attempted to lift the curse. It involved binding Morgan's spirit to an artifact hidden somewhere in the town. However, the ritual had failed, and strange occurrences continued to plague Hollowvale. On her way back to the inn, Lila noticed a peculiar shop. Inside, she met a mysterious shopkeeper who seemed to know her name. "You'll need this," he said, handing her an old, tarnished key. It opens more than just doors. That night, the whispers grew louder. She saw shadows moving beneath her door. A voice called out, "Lila." It wasn't Mrs. Elspeth. Panic surged as the shadows began seeping under the doorframe, filling her room with an oppressive darkness. She clutched the book tightly and began to recite the names of the accused, as written in the text. The shadows receded slightly, and the whispers stopped. But before the darkness fully lifted, a single phrase echoed in her ear, "You can't escape." The next morning, Lila used the key on the locked basement door. The air grew colder as she descended. The basement was filled with relics and artifacts, including a cracked mirror that seemed to whisper her name. At the center of the room was a chest. Inside, she found an old, blood-stained diary. It belonged to Morgan herself. The diary revealed that Morgan had indeed been wrongfully accused. Her only crime was being a healer in a town plagued by fear and superstition. The entries grew darker as Morgan described the torment she endured and her final, desperate attempt to protect herself with a spell, one that had gone horribly wrong. Guided by the diary, Lila ventured to the abandoned church the next morning. The church loomed like a sentinel over the town. Its windows were shattered, and ivy crept up its stone walls. Inside, the air was thick and stale. She approached the altar, where she discovered a hidden compartment containing a leather-bound journal. It belonged to Father Grayson, the priest who had condemned Morgan. The journal revealed a shocking truth: Morgan had been innocent. Father Grayson had framed her to hide his own misdeeds, including the murder of a local woman. Overcome with guilt, he had attempted a ritual to summon Morgan's spirit for forgiveness. Instead, he unleashed a vengeful force that haunted the town to this day. As Lila read, the church began to creak and groan. The doors slammed shut, and a guttural voice echoed, "You shouldn't be here." A shadowy figure emerged, and Lila realized it was Morgan. Her face was a mask of rage and sorrow. "They all lied," Morgan whispered. "And now, you will pay for their sins." Lila begged for understanding, insisting she wanted to help. Morgan's ghost paused, her anger flickering. "If you seek to end this," Morgan said, "you must confront the one who bound me here." Guided by Morgan's whispers, Lila descended into the church's crypt. The air grew colder with every step. At the bottom, she found a skeletal figure clutching a blood-stained rosary, Father Grayson. The crypt walls were inscribed with prayers and curses, and Lila realized she needed to perform a ritual to break the curse. As Lila touched the rosary, the crypt shook violently. The spirit of Father Grayson appeared, monstrous and deformed. His eyes burned with unholy light. "You will not undo my work," he roared. Morgan's spirit materialized beside Lila, and a spectral battle ensued. Grayson hurled bolts of shadow, while Morgan countered with searing light. Lila, caught in the middle, frantically searched the journal for a way to banish the priest. The journal contained a binding incantation. Reciting the words, Lila drew a circle around the remains using salt from a pouch she'd found in the altar. The room erupted in a blinding light as the two spirits clashed one final time. Grayson's scream echoed as he was consumed by flames. With the curse lifted, Morgan's spirit softened. "Thank you," she whispered before vanishing into a warm glow. The sun rose over Hollowvale, its golden light transforming the town. The cobblestone streets felt alive again, and the air was filled with hope. Mrs. Elspeth and the townsfolk thanked Lila, though she knew they would never fully understand what she had endured. As Lila left Hollowvale, she felt a sense of closure. Yet, as she drove down the forested road, she glanced in the rearview mirror. At the edge of the trees stood a familiar figure, Morgan, watching with a serene expression. Lila smiled faintly, knowing the past had finally found peace. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey. Remember, not all shadows hide in the dark, and sometimes, the past refuses to rest. Until next time, sweet dreams.